Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we really try to pull back the layers on complex topics. We sift through the articles, the research, expert insights, all to get you those key nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're jumping into the life and legacy of someone whose name is, well, basically synonymous with innovation itself, Thomas Edison.
Yeah, Edison. The name immediately brings things to mind, doesn't it?
Totally. You think light bulb, bringing light into the dark? Or maybe the phonograph, capturing the sound out of thin air.
Yeah.
It's iconic stuff. But this deep dive, it isn't just going to be a rehash of those greatest hits. Our mission today is really to get beyond that simple textbook story, the lone genius myth. We want to explore the real Thomas Edison. We're going to unpack some of the lesser-known struggles, that almost obsessive, relentless drive he had, and the huge impact of his belief in just sheer effort. It's more than invention. It's perseverance. It's strategy.
And it's his whole approach to problem solving, which is still so relevant. And that's really why looking at Edison again is so interesting now. He wasn't just some guy who stumbled onto a few cool gadgets.
Right.
He was, in a lot of ways, the architect of how we even do innovation today. The sources we've looked at, they paint this picture of a really complex guy whose process, the way he went about inventing, was maybe just as groundbreaking as the inventions themselves.
The process itself.
Yeah. What's really fascinating is how his own life, with all the breakthroughs, but also the big setbacks, it kind of mirrors how discovery actually works. He didn't just make things, he fundamentally changed how we think about making things, how we tackle really big problems, and maybe most importantly, how we just keep going when things look impossible.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning now. Let's rewind. Where does this all start?
Well, the genesis of this unique mind.
Thomas Alva Edison, born Milan, Ohio, 1847.
Yeah.
Youngest of 7 kids. And honestly, his early school days, not exactly promising.
No, not at all.
Our sources point to a really rocky start in school. Famously, his teachers thought he was slow. Can you believe that? And even impossible to teach.
Imagine hearing that about Edison.
It's wild. And it's not just a funny little story.
Yeah.
It really makes you question our whole idea of school smarts, doesn't it? Like, what does that even mean compared to real-world ingenuity?
It absolutely does. It forces you to think, are traditional schools always spotting potential or sometimes just rewarding conformity?
Yeah.
And this is where his mother, Nancy Edison, becomes just pivotal. Her belief in him, even after the school basically wrote him off, it changed everything.
She pulled him out, right, after just a few months.
Yes, exactly. Took on homeschooling him herself. And the key thing was the freedom she gave him. It wasn't about rigid lessons or memorizing facts.
So what did she do?
She encouraged him to read everything he could get his hands on, to explore stuff, and critically, to experiment. Just mess around with things that caught his interest.
Learning by doing, essentially.
Yeah, precisely. It wasn't textbook learning. It was about sparking that curiosity, that love of figuring things out through trying stuff. And this unconventional education, free from the usual academic boxes, it laid the groundwork for a totally different kind of innovator.
One who wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty.
Right. Someone who valued observation and endless experiments over just theory. It built this instinct for problem solving that just defined his whole career.
And you see it pretty quickly, don't you? By age 12, he's already got this mix of, business sense and real scientific curiosity.
Oh, yeah.
He wasn't just delivering papers on the train. He was doing chemistry experiments.
Yeah.
In the baggage car.
I know, it sounds crazy. Setting up a little lab back there amidst all the luggage.
And didn't he almost burn the train down?
He did. There's that famous story, a stick of phosphorus caught fire, set the car ablaze. Apparently, they threw him and his lab right off the train.
Wow. But even that didn't stop him.
Nope. That period really shows how his learning style, the one his mother fostered, let him learn by tinkering, by pushing limits, even in, a baggage car.
It wasn't just the kid's hobby.
No, it was an early sign of his passion for science and making it do something practical. He wasn't afraid of a little fire, literally, if it meant discovery.
That's amazing.
And those early experiences, even the fiery ones, they really did shape his whole approach. That learning by doing thing, experimenting in a moving train car, that directly feeds into his later, more organized methods.
Because he wasn't just reading books.
Exactly. His lack of traditional schooling, maybe, let him develop this very hands-on, empirical way of knowing things. He wasn't just reading about stuff. He was taking it apart, messing with it, trying to make it better through direct interaction.
So he understood the practical side instinctively.
Deeply. He got the mechanics, the real-world application of science principles. That became core to his whole invention philosophy. He wasn't learning for a test. He was learning to make things work better. It kept him grounded in the tangible.
And that practical focus really ramps up when he becomes a telegraph operator in his teens.
Absolutely. That wasn't just a job for him.
It was like another lab.
Exactly. A real-time working piece of cutting-edge tech he could observe and, importantly, improve. The sources talk about his incredible dedication. He learned Morse code super fast, but he wanted more.
He worked nights.
Yeah, he often volunteered for night shifts. Why? Because it was quiet. Gave him time to study, read technical stuff, and, crucially, tinker with the actual telegraph gear without bothering anyone.
Always looking for problems to fix.
Constantly. He saw the daily frustrations, the limits of early telegraphy, and wanted to solve them.
And this leads to his first big invention.
Many consider it his first major one, yeah. The automatic telegraph repeater.
Okay, break that down. What did it actually do?
So imagine sending a telegraph signal way back then over miles and miles of wire. The signal gets weaker, right? Fades out.
Like a bad phone connection.
Kind of. Before Edison, every so often, an operator had to listen to the weak message, write it down, and then tap it out again with a fresh signal. Super slow, lots of room for error.
Tedious.
Totally. Edison's repeater was clever. It used a local battery along the line to automatically sense the fading signal and then, boom, regenerate a strong, fresh pulse.
So it boosted the signal automatically.
Exactly. Like little automated relay stations keeping the message going without a person having to retransmit it made long-distance telegraphy way faster and more reliable for the first time.
And it really shows his approach, doesn't it? Not just dreaming up weird ideas.
No, he was deeply pragmatic.
Yeah.
He saw a real-world problem, a bottleneck in communication, and built something to directly fix it. His inventions always aimed to meet a need, solve a challenge, make daily life better, faster, more efficient.
Inventing with a clear purpose.
Absolutely. And the telegraph industry itself, I mean, that was the internet of the 1860s and 70s, right? Cutting edge, connecting the world. It became his ultimate hands-on university.
Because he was right there, using it every day.
Yeah. Day in, day out, gave him this amazing firsthand insight into what wasn't working well, what operators needed, what users needed. He saw the glitches, the inefficiencies, the places where improvement could make a huge difference.
So that direct experience fueled his ideas.
Profoundly. And it really cemented that core belief. Invention has to be useful. It has to have a tangible application, a clear benefit. He wasn't about abstract theories floating in space.
He wanted things that worked.
Things that worked, things that solved actual problems for real people, that practical, results-driven mindset. That's the foundation for everything that came next.
Okay, so building on that practical skill, that self-taught engineering, he makes this huge leap in 1876. He opens the lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey.
Menlo Park, yes.
And this wasn't just like a bigger garage, right? This was something totally new.
Oh, completely revolutionary. The sources are emphatic. This was the world's first industrial research lab. Think about that. An invention factory.
An invention factory. I like that.
Before Menlo Park, inventing was mostly, guys working alone, maybe in a small workshop, maybe in their study. It was often kind of random, relying on a lone genius having a flash of insight.
Edison changed that model completely.
He systematized it. Picture this place. It's buzzing. It's not just Edison. He hires a team. Machinists, chemists, engineers, assistants, all working together.
Collaboration.
Yes. The lab itself was organized. Spaces for different experiments, a technical library, tons of materials for building prototypes quickly. They worked crazy hours, day and night, fueled by coffee and Edison's own insane energy.
An ecosystem built for speed.
Purely for rapid innovation. A place to develop ideas, test them hard, tweak them, test again, with the whole team and resources behind it. It was basically the world's first R&D department. Changed the whole game.
So it wasn't just the inventions, but the way he set up inventing that was groundbreaking.
Precisely. That shift you mentioned, from the lone inventor to this collaborative, systematic, almost factory line approach to innovation. That's what's truly fascinating here.
Menlo Park wasn't just a place.
It was a methodology, a focused environment designed for churning out prototypes, testing like crazy, iterating relentlessly. It let them chase multiple ideas at once, learn from failures super fast, and test new theories with incredible speed.
Which sped everything up.
Exponentially. And if you connect that to today, It's the direct ancestor of modern corporate R&D, university tech labs, even agile methods and software.
Oh.
Edison didn't just invent products. He invented the process of inventing at scale. He showed it wasn't just about genius moments, but about organized, disciplined team effort.
And the results came fast.
Yeah.
Like, really fast.
Almost immediately. Astonishingly fast.
The phonograph. Same year the lab basically opens, right? 1877?
1877. And just pause for a second and think about what that meant. The first machine ever to record and play back sound.
Before that, sounds disappeared.
Exactly. Ephemeral. A voice. Music. Gone the moment it stopped. He captured it. He literally bottled sound.
How do people react?
With total, utter amazement. Disbelief, even. The sources say things like, people were stunned. It was like hearing ghosts speak.
I can only imagine.
Think about it. You live your whole life, sound has never been saved, and suddenly you can hear a voice from yesterday. Or your own voice talking back from this weird cylinder contraption.
Mind-blowing.
Edison famously recited, "Mary had a little lamb into it," and when it played back, the room apparently just went nuts. Some people thought it had to be a trick, some kind of ventriloquism.
It seemed like magic.
It really did. And it had obvious uses, dictation, recording messages, but it also cracked open whole new worlds for entertainment, communication. This invention really cemented his reputation. That's when the press started calling him the Wizard of Menlo Park.
A wizard.
Yep. But even with that incredible success, that sensation, Edison was already looking ahead
To the next big thing.
to an even bigger challenge. Practical, affordable electric light for everyone. He didn't just want to capture sound, he wanted to light up the world.
Right, the light bulb. Which, as you said, is maybe the most famous, but also the most misunderstood invention.
It really is. Let's unpack this, because the common idea is, Edison invents the light bulb. Out of nowhere.
But that's not quite it.
Not really, no. And the real story tells you so much more about his actual genius. He didn't invent the very first electric light, he perfected it. And that difference is absolutely key.
So other bulbs existed before him.
Yes, our sources confirm that. There were arc lamps, even some early incandescent bulbs, but they were seriously flawed. People described them as weak, flickery, insanely expensive, and just totally unreliable.
Not practical for everyday use.
Not even close. They'd burn out super fast, sometimes just minutes, or they sucked up huge amounts of power. They were like scientific curiosities, not something you could put in your living room.
So Edison's real challenge was different.
Exactly. It wasn't just making light. It was making light practical, durable, affordable, and crucially long-lasting enough for everyone.
And how did he tackle that?
With that 99% perspiration method, it was grueling. He started this systematic, almost obsessive hunt for the perfect filament material, something that could glow brightly for a long, long time inside a vacuum-sealed bulb.
And he tested everything.
Literally thousands of materials, according to the accounts. Plant fibers, bamboo, cotton thread, platinum wires, even apparently hairs from his assistants' beards.
No way.
Seriously. Each material was a test, an experiment, and usually another dead end.
That sheer grind. The scale of it is incredible.
It really is. And if we look at the bigger picture here, Edison's true brilliance wasn't some magic light bulb moment. It was that relentless iteration, that refusal to quit when faced with what anyone else would call failure.
How many attempts did they say?
The number often cited is staggering. He failed over 6,000 times trying to find the right filament. Just let that sink in.
6,000.
It's not just a number. That's thousands of experiments, thousands of tiny adjustments, thousands of late nights watching another filament burn out too soon. It's an almost unbelievable level of persistence.
Which brings us to that famous quote of his.
Yes, the classic.
Yeah.
I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work.
Which tells you everything about his mindset.
Absolutely. Failure wasn't failure to him. It was data. Every single one of those 6,000 supposed failures was just information. Information that got him closer to the answer by ruling things out.
He reframed the whole idea of setbacks.
He saw them as necessary steps, not personal flaws, but part of the learning curve. It really drives home the idea that persistence, that sheer stubbornness, is maybe more powerful than just raw talent. He truly believed you could turn failure into progress if you just kept working, kept observing, kept learning.
That's a powerful lesson in itself beyond the light bulb.
It really is. It's a mindset anyone can apply, right? In science, business, anything. And what's amazing is he didn't just stop when he finally found a filament that worked.
He kept going.
Oh, yeah. That breakthrough came in 1879, a carbonized cotton thread filament. It stayed lit for over 13 hours, which was huge back then.
A massive jump.
Monumental. But Edison knew, deep down, that a great light bulb was useless if people couldn't plug it in.
Right. You need the power grid.
Exactly. So he didn't just rest on the bulb. He shifted gears from product to infrastructure. He took on the colossal task of building the first electrical power system.
That sounds like an even bigger job.
It was immense, designing and building giant dynamos to generate the power, figuring out the whole network of wires to distribute it safely, even inventing switches and meters for people's houses.
Wow, the whole system.
The whole system. And the culmination was the Pearl Street Station in New York City, opened in September 1882. It started pumping electricity to businesses and homes downtown.
And the impact.
Immediate, transformative. Like the sources say, New York City began to shine. It wasn't just a novelty, it was the start of widespread electric light. Changed cities, changed work, changed everything. It was the future arriving.
And that's what really sets him apart, isn't it?
Yeah.
Seeing the whole picture.
Absolutely. That's the crucial thing many inventors missed. What's really remarkable is his foresight. He understood that the bulb was only part of the puzzle.
You needed the whole ecosystem.
A practical, reliable, scalable system was just as vital for people to actually use it. It wasn't just a product guy. He was a system architect. He built it all, end to end. The power plants, the underground wires, the sockets on the wall.
That holistic view made it work in the real world.
It's what unleashed the power of the invention, made it accessible, made it practical for ordinary folks.
And the societal change must have been huge.
Oh, profound. Almost overnight. Cities used to be dark or rely on gaslight after sunset. Suddenly, they were safer. Businesses could stay open later.
Factories could run 24/7.
Exactly. It fueled massive industrial growth. Whole new industries popped up, making wires, bulbs, appliances, installing the grids. It changed how people worked, lived, socialized, even how safe they felt.
It really is the foundation of the world we live in now.
Undeniably. We totally take it for granted, flipping a switch, charging our phones. But Edison laid that groundwork. He didn't just invent a bulb. He built the electrified world.
Okay, but it wasn't all smooth sailing and wizardry, right? There were bumps in the road, big ones.
Definitely not smooth. Success came with serious conflict, fierce competition, major challenges. The most famous, probably the most intense, was his rivalry with Nikola Tesla.
Ah, Tesla.
Yeah.
The other giant.
A true clash of titans. Tesla actually worked for Edison for a while, but they clashed badly. He became Edison's greatest rival. And their fight over which type of electricity should rule the world became known as the War of Currents.
AC versus DC.
Precisely. Edison was all in on direct current DC. He'd built his whole New York system on it. DC worked okay for dense areas, short distances.
But it had limitations.
Big ones. You lost a lot of power sending DC over long distances. The voltage dropped. You'd need generating stations practically every mile or so. Very expensive, not scalable for wide areas.
And Tesla.
Tesla championed alternating current. AC and George Westinghouse backed him commercially. AC's big advantage was transformers. You could easily boost the voltage way up to send it efficiently over long distances with little loss, then step it back down safely for use in homes.
That sounds much better for widespread use.
It was. But the War of Currents was nasty. A public relations battle, a commercial fight. Edison even resorted to, well, pretty grim tactics, publicly electrocuting animals with AC to try and prove it was too dangerous.
Yikes.
Yeah, not his finest hour. But in the end, physics and economics won. Tesla and Westinghouse's AC system proved more practical, scalable, and cheaper for powering large regions, whole countries eventually.
So Edison actually lost that one.
He did. AC became the standard. It's a powerful reminder that even a visionary like Edison could face huge setbacks, misjudge the technological path, and end up on the losing side in a fast-moving field. Innovation isn't always about one person being right.
That raises a really interesting point, though. Does that kind of intense rivalry actually help innovation, even if it gets ugly?
That's a great question. The War of Currents was definitely brutal, but you could argue it did accelerate things. It forced both sides to push their tech hard, refine it, prove its merit.
Push them to be better.
Yeah, the clash between DC and AC, these opposing philosophies, created this intense pressure. Edison had to try and make DC work over distance. Tesla had to prove AC was safe and reliable against a powerful opponent.
And the better system won out in the end.
AC's advantages for long-distance transmission were just too significant. It shows how progress often happens, doesn't it? Through debate, competition, real-world testing. Sometimes the best idea emerges from conflict, even if it means a giant like Edison has to take a loss.
It wasn't just the War of Currents either, was it? He had other big projects that didn't pan out.
Oh, absolutely. The sources are clear. He failed often on other major ventures, poured huge amounts of time, money, energy into things that just didn't hit, like the light bulb or phonograph.
Like the mining project.
Yes. His iron ore mining venture in New Jersey. He sank a fortune into it, maybe over $1 million back then, which was astronomical. Bought land, built huge plants, invented new machines to crush low-grade ore and pull out the iron with magnets.
What was the goal?
He dreamed of making America self-sufficient in iron, but it ultimately failed. Technical problems, and then, crucially, huge, rich iron deposits were found in the Midwest that were way easier and cheaper to mine. His complex process just couldn't compete economically.
That's been a huge blow.
Massive. And then there were the concrete houses.
Concrete houses.
Yeah, around the turn of the century, he had this idea for affordable, durable homes made from poured concrete, using these giant reusable molds. He even built a few.
Just ahead of its time.
Maybe too far ahead. The molds were incredibly expensive, and people just weren't ready for concrete houses back then. It didn't take off. So yeah, these weren't small failures. They were huge bets that didn't pay off.
But he didn't stop inventing.
That's the key thing. Despite these massive setbacks, financially and personally, he always moved forward. He didn't let them define him or kill his drive. He learned his lessons and was already on to the next problem, the next invention.
It's important to remember that even those failures weren't necessarily total losses, right?
Exactly. What's fascinating is how he viewed them, not as defeats, but as steps in learning. It goes back to that 10,000 ways idea.
They still provided information.
Absolutely. Every experiment, every venture, win or lose, generated data, practical insights, experience. The mining stuff, he had to innovate in crushing tech, material handling, magnets. Maybe that knowledge popped up later or helped other engineers.
Even the losses weren't wasted effort.
He wasn't afraid to swing for the fences, you know. He knew not every swing connects, but every swing teaches you something. It just built up his massive knowledge base.
Now, underpinning all this, the successes, the failures, was his work ethic, which sounds intense.
Intense is putting it mildly. This brings us to a really critical part of who he was, the source of so much brilliance, but also, as the sources say, something that came at a significant personal cost.
His obsession.
His total, all-consuming obsession with work. He was relentless, pushed himself to absolute extremes. The stories are legendary. Sleeping just a few hours, curled up on a lab bench.
Forgetting to eat.
Literally. So absorbed he'd just forget until someone reminded him. People who worked with him described him as being almost in a trance when he was deep into solving a problem.
And that focus drove the breakthroughs.
Without a doubt. It let him just outwork, out-experiment, outlast almost anyone. He simply would not stop until the problem was cracked.
But that raises questions too, doesn't it, about the cost?
It really does.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what about the implications of that kind of extreme work ethic for mental health, for relationships, for just balance?
There were trade-offs.
Huge trade-offs. His family life, his friendships, they often took a backseat to the lab. It reminds us that this kind of singular dedication, while incredibly productive, often comes with heavy burdens.
It's the double-edged sword of genius.
Exactly. It makes you think about that tension, still very real today for innovators and entrepreneurs, between chasing a vision relentlessly and living a sustainable life. Was that extreme pace necessary or just part of his unique makeup? It's complicated.
So, as we look towards the end of his life, what's the final tally, the overall impact?
It's almost hard to comprehend the scale. By his death in 1931, the number is just staggering. Over 1,000 patents.
1,000 patents.
Over 1,000 inventions or significant improvements credited to him. It represents a lifetime utterly devoted to identifying problems and hammering away at solutions.
And not just gadgets, but whole industries.
Right. Entire industries that define our modern world. Electric power, obviously. Recorded sound leading to the music industry. Motion pictures, the birth of cinema.
Things we interact with every single day.
Constantly. His inventions shaped modern life in ways we barely even notice anymore. Think about your day. Light switch, music streaming, watching a movie. So much of it traces back to technologies Edison pioneered or made practical. His fingerprints are everywhere. He truly built the framework for how we live now.
Beyond the specific inventions, though, what about the broader legacy? The philosophy.
that's maybe even more fascinating. His legacy isn't just the 1,000 patents. It's the spirit of innovation he championed, the methodology he created.
The 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration idea.
Exactly. And that wasn't just a soundbite for him. He lived it. It was his core belief, the foundation of everything he did. He genuinely believed and proved through his work that big breakthroughs aren't just lucky flashes of insight.
They're earned.
They're the result of hard, grinding work, countless experiments, unwavering, stubborn persistence. He showed that perspiration, that relentless effort, was the critical ingredient.
Which raises a question for us now.
It really does. How does that philosophy land today? In our world of, quick fixes, instant results, viral success seemingly overnight.
Edison's life is kind of the antidote to that.
It's a powerful reminder. The really big changes, the ones that reshape society, they usually demand sustained, tough effort, deep commitment, a refusal to give up when things get hard. He showed us what happens when you combine that spark of curiosity with relentless, organized work. He didn't just light up the world, he showed how to light it up.
Okay, so wrapping this incredible deep dive up, what does it all mean for you listening right now? What are the big takeaways from Edison's story?
Well, first, maybe the biggest one. Failure isn't the enemy of success.
That's part of the process.
An essential part. It's not a stop sign, it's feedback. It guides you. Every dead end for Edison was just a step closer to the right path.
That's huge. What else?
Second, that deep belief in an idea, even if everyone else thinks it's crazy, combined with that relentless effort, it really can change the world.
Believing and doing.
And finally, persistence. That sheer grit, that refusal to quit. It's often more powerful than just being smart or talented. It's about seeing setbacks not as defeats, but as chances to learn, to regroup, to push forward.
Embrace the struggle, almost.
Yeah, see it as part of the journey.
So maybe a final thought to leave everyone with.
If we connect all this to the bigger picture, Edison's legacy really challenges all of us, doesn't it? To rethink how we tackle problems, big ones, small ones.
How so?
It pushes us to embrace the effort, maybe even find value in the setbacks, and always keep that curiosity alive, that willingness to experiment that he had from childhood.
So ask ourselves.
Yeah, ask yourself, what problems out there today, maybe in your job, your community, the world, what needs that Edison-level persistence? How can we apply that 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration mindset to our own challenges?
Even when it's hard.
Especially when it's hard. His life is this incredible testament to just keeping going, keep trying, keep learning, and never stop asking that incredibly powerful question, what if?